Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review. I'm here today to talk to you about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1, Episode 1, Day of the Dumpster. The episode that started it all. Man, I remember I was a kid. I think I was probably in elementary, around like 5th grade or something like that. I'm not even sure how I knew this show was going to come on, but when it came on, I watched it. And I was like, oh my God, what is this awesomeness? I had never seen anything in my life like that. Like, never. And because when you were a kid back in those days, in the early 90s, and I grew up in the 80s and stuff, and in the 90s, it's kind of like cartoons. Like, the closest thing that came similar to it was probably Ninja Turtles, probably. Because mostly you just had like comedic cartoons, Looney Tunes, Care Bears. I'm trying to think of other stuff back. I expect their Gadget, but I have never seen anything like Power Rangers. It was just so much electricity. It was like this awesome like monstrosity and stuff like that. And it took the world by storm. That's the thing about it. Whoever knew that one episode from this kids show will be a fandom over 30 something years later? And I do consider Power Rangers a fandom, just like Star Trek and Star Wars. It deserves respect. Not every season's goofy, not every season's bad. There are some really deep, meaningful episodes. I mean, my God, you got people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s still talking about Power Rangers till this day. You don't even hear little kids or teenagers talk about it. And it's because it was something that was too big and it could not be contained. And Saban knew that from the very start when he saw the Sentai footage and stuff. And thank God for that man for bringing it over. He might be controversial at times with how he treats his stars, the Power Ranger stars and all this other stuff, but my God, man, he gave us one of the greatest gifts of like all time. And I am so thankful for that because Power Rangers is all kinds of rock and roll. I never understood how people can praise things like the Avengers, X-Men, the Justice League, but they bash Power Rangers. They are literally the same type of stuff. It's good versus evil, colorful costumes. Even the MCU has humor, so I don't understand people's point. Now, granted, Justice League, X-Men, and Avengers, they're way more serious and a little bit more hard hitting with the mature tones, but Power Rangers do have some sentimental value to it. It does have some drama. It does have stakes. The only problem with it is that they're never fully allowed to go there because it's still considered like kids like television and stuff. And that's mainly because of the fault of the first like series, Mighty Morphin. It was more sillier in tone and stuff. But as time started to progress, it started getting darker and darker, but darker on that of a kid's level because they couldn't go too dark. They tried to go the silly, goofy, childish kids TV route and a little darker with the first movie. It's diversive, let's say like that. And then in the second movie, the Turbo one, I tried not to remember that. And then they went the dark, gritty route with the 2017 one. I do not like that movie whatsoever. And so, like, now Netflix is going to have their mature Power Rangers. So, only time will tell just how mature it will be. Would it be too mature to where it alienates the fan base, similar to that, the 2017 one? Who knows? Let's get into this episode. So we see a bunch of astronauts and they're flying outer space, but ironically, the planet they're going to is an alien-looking planet, which makes no sense because of what's about to happen next. So when they crash land, the sky is blue. I always assume, and then they find like a alien-looking dumpster made of metal. I always assume because Rita took up her base on the moon, I always assumed they landed on the moon. But it could have been, because when you're on the moon, ain't no sky gonna be blue. And not only that, but it was an alien planet that they went to. But then when she wakes up from the dumpster and all the her minions and stuff, she says she's gonna conquer the nearest planet, which is Earth. So it can't be an alien planet. So I'm really confused as to what exactly they landed on and why the sky is blue and stuff. Because whenever we do see people on the moon, it's always dark skies and stars and stuff, you know? So I don't understand it. But then we are introduced to our villains. We got Goldar, Squad, Babu, Finster, and Rita herself. And what makes this scene so memorable is that this is when we get our first sense of like humor. The villains, they're evil, but they got a silly side to them too, so they're not that scary. Goldar looks amazing with his design, and so does the rest of the aliens. Rita has a great look to her, and the voice actress Barbara Babs did a great job. Like, I'm surprised she went with that voice because she could have went with a regular voice. But I think they told her her voice wasn't scary enough or something like that, so they fired her. But then she went back and she put on her Rita voice, and history is in the making. So, like she said, she's gonna conquer the nearest planet, which is Earth. And then that's when we got our transition into our team of heroes. They haven't even became Power Rangers yet. They're just doing their regular teen stuff at the youth center. We hear somebody on the radio talking about the youth center, Angel Grove, this and that. But other than that, we don't hear no announcements from the radio. We do not see the person who owns the youth center, Ernie. He does not show up in this episode. At least I don't think he does. Yeah, but we just get our five main heroes and a bunch of background people. And for the most part, we see a little bit of how they are in their personality, but not in the full extent. The only people who we know straight up, personality wise, is Jason, Kimberly, and Billy. We see Jason and Zach, they're practicing martial arts because Jason has like a class he teaches. We see Kimberly on the balance beam because she does gymnastics, and then we see Billy coming in all nerdy looking, being his like scientific nerdy self. Now, when it comes to the others, it's a little bit harder to decipher what they're about. Zach, we see him training with Jason. We do not see him dance yet, which is his thing. Trini was always a hard person to identify. I never really truly understood what her trait or speciality is. I do know that she's very wise and calm, so maybe that could be it. And we see her doing Tai Chi. At least I think that's what it is. And then so Billy's coming in. He wants to learn martial arts. He doesn't know how to do it. But then we get our bullies of the show. Bulk and Skull play beautifully for laughs and giggles. These two dudes were hilarious. However, they're dressed like villains from like an 80s movie and stuff. So all they want to do is like date Kimberly and Trini. And of course they don't want to. So then they just rapscallions doing like terrible things. This probably wouldn't be acceptable now because they're very in pursuit of Kimberly and Trini, especially when they say no. And so Zach has to come in and try to like defend them and everything. That reminds me of one time I went to this concert. Um, I was hanging out. Well, I was in college at that time. My college friends at that time, and I had friends that were twins. And there was this guy who was just drunk, like all like trying to like talk to him, put his arms around them, and they got scared and called my name out. So I had to come in, do the macho thing, put my arm around both of them, and pretend like they were with me and stuff like that. And he backed off. Ugh. I swear, people, man. And then so like at some point in Balkan Skull, they wanna like learn martial arts, so they dress up in it. So they're acting like the typical butt-headed self, and then so Jason teaches them teaches Bulk some move. He can actually do that back kick. I was shocked at his size, but he couldn't do the tornado kick. And he just falls in a very hilarious. These two dudes are just so hilarious. I mean, yeah, it was cheesy 90s cheese, but it was great 90s cheese, you know what I'm saying? And then so Rita, she's ready to start being bad. So she has Finster make up her putty patrol things. And Goldar, watching he doesn't have wings yet. It's kind of confusing. I'll get into that a little bit later. So she starts like the earthquakes and everything, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, no, there's an earthquake!" Ah. And then we finally get our mentors. It cuts to the command center. And the command center is something to really behold, man. The outside interior is something like I've never seen before. I don't know, like, if this is a real building anywhere, but, like, they went all out to make it look, like, futuristic and stuff and alien looking. Then the inside is really cool. The inside looks like space, and just like a room, like it's room and atmosphere space, like black backdrop, like stars and all these like computer consoles and stuff, and we get Zordon in this giant tube, and the dude is literally a floating head in a tube, and he's blue, and he's talking to his assistant Alpha, who's an android and everything. And it was just something to behold. It's kind of like you don't see things like that unless you're watching sci-fi. But I didn't really know what to conceive of this. Like, am I watching sci-fi? Am I watching a kids show? Am I watching a superhero thing? Like, what exactly am I watching here? And so Alpha, this is the part where it gets more cheesy, comedic. When people think it's a kid show, Alpha's like, ah, yeah, 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 and he has his stuffed teddy bear in his hand. And I'm just like, why does he have a teddy bear? But Saban was all about making kids feel comfortable and kitty stuff, so that's why. But Zora knows exactly what it is because he's tied into the morphin grid, and he knows it's Rita and stuff. So he tells Alpha, and this was really interesting because he tells Alpha, locate 5 people with I think obnoxious personality or something like that. He said, and Alpha's all like, "Oh no, not teenagers." Now in the intro, it's completely different. In the intro, he's all like, locate 5 teenagers with attitude. Like they never say that in like the show, but yet it's in the intro. Cause I guess that's a whole lot quicker and cooler to sound than what Zordon actually said. So of course, who's the 5 people he picks and selects? It's the people I just talked about. So they get teleported to the command center. And this is one of those rare things where when people transport to the command center, there are like these 2 coils in like the command center, and these electrical surges like go towards the center where the people teleport at. It's the only time we ever see that, ironically. And so Zordon is no longer in his tube, and Alpha is nowhere to be found. And so everybody's in shock, awe, and amazed. They have no idea where they are. And you can really feel that, like in their expressions, like they really have no idea where they're at, you know what I'm saying? And then so Billy starts touching like the computer panels, and that causes Alpha to come out and freak out and fall. And then it's that famous line when Billy looks, and we see the point of view from Alpha, what he sees when he looks at people, and that famous line by Billy, a fully functional something something automaton. And then Zordon teleports in with the electrical coils going inside his tube, and he greets himself to the Power Rangers. They, of course, or to the teenagers, they, of course, are freaked out. And it's so ominous. Zordon really truly feels like a godlike being when he teleports in and he talks to the Power Rangers. This is the original voice actor, who they later replaced after this episode. Oh no, maybe no, wait. I think this is no. This is the original. No. Wait. I'm getting a little confused. It's the original actor's face. The original actor did the pilot, the unseen pilot, the unaired one. I'm not sure if he does this one, but after this, they got like a different dude who sadly passed away. And the original one sounded more British and stuff, but it's this dude's face. But yeah, he feels so ominous and godlike, you know what I'm saying? And it's just something to behold. And then when you're watching this, you're just like, and just so much awe and amazement, you know what I'm saying? And he tells them what's going on about Rita and everything. But the footage he shows of her is weird because she's flying through like the city with the rest of her hench people, her little tricycle thing, and it's the actual like city of like the world, like Japan and stuff. And it's kind of like, well, she hasn't been to Earth yet, so that was kind of weird. But they use stock footage all the time. And so he's telling them, like I said before, what's all going on, how he's going to infuse them with the powers of the ancient dinosaurs, and how they're selected to protect the world. And of course, they want nothing of this. For some reason, they just don't. You know what I'm saying? It's like they think it's too much over their head, and they want out. And so, but Jason's the only person who wants to stay. But then they convince him to leave. But even when they leave, Zordon still tells them, may the power protect you. Because he knows they're going to do the right thing. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause he knows that the morphin grid selected wisely and stuff. Because he already gave them their morphers. So they leave on out of there. And they're still talking. When they leave, it's a really cool scene. We see the outside of the command center, like an actual building. And I don't think that's CGI. I think it's the actual like part of a building and stuff. So they walk out and they're in the desert. I don't know how they think they're gonna get back home, but you know, stuck it out in the desert. It's never really explained where exactly the command center is, but it's out in the mountains and like the desert area. And so, like as they're walking, Rita is now ready to attack. So she blasts like the area where the command center is, and it freaks out like our teenagers, you know. And down come the putties. So they try to fight him off. Billy, of course, is doing his nerdy fighting style, but he can't really fight. Trini and the other ones, they can hold their own, but for not too much longer. They all get taken down one by one, where Jason is the last to get taken down. And so they're scared. They don't know what they're gonna do, and like so, then Jason tells them, you know, with his Zoran gave them morphers, let's do it. So then they morph, and it's a cool sequence when they morph. It gets cooler in later seasons and series, but for that time and period, it was awesome. Then they morph, and then is the Japanese footage, which at that time I did not know this was really Japanese footage. I knew it looked different, but I didn't know why. And I didn't understand. Like I'm like, why does Rita's like voice not match up with her mouth? Like something's going on here. And then so when they morph, you get that excitement feeling because you hear the music getting more and more amped, and you see Alpha jumping up and down talking about, yay, they did it and stuff. But then this one don't make no sense. The putties are still right there near the command center, but Zordon tells them to transport them where Goldar is in the city, so they get teleported over there. So I thought that was kind of weird they left the putties over there to get attacked the command center. But then when we see Goldar, he has his wings. This makes no sense because in later episodes, the wings are gone again. And when he goes big, the wings are gone. And then it's explained in season 2 that Zed took his wings away, but then gave them back. So this has always been very confusing. But it was awesome. It was pretty cool. Like the fight scene didn't last that long, but from what we got from them fighting the putties, it was awesome and everything. And then so of course Rita makes like Goldar go big. And so they call on their Zords. Oh my God, man. The excitement of seeing those Zords come out. It was old school goodness. Old school stop motion animatronic goodness, man. You really felt these things were real in life size when they came out doing what they did. Like running through like the desert or running through like the jungle and stuff. Like you felt that it looked realistic. It still holds up to this day, which is shocking because the Power Rangers Sentai footage that came out in the 80s. And of course the show came out in the 90s. It looks way better than newer Power Ranger seasons when they make their Zords come out. Why? Because it's all CGI and cheap CGI too. And not only that, but one thing that was really cool about these old school Zords when they transform into like the Megazord actually looked like metal. It had some chrome painting to it. Now, Zords look like Lego figures in plastic, and it's embarrassing. They're bigger and bulkier looking, but they look like plastic Lego figures, and that's just a shame. And so they fight Goldar and everything, but they fight him fist to fist while he has his sword. And basically just Goldar slashing them back and forth and the sparks are flying. Now, one cool thing is that when they did get in their Zords, they react very much like the way teenagers do. They like talked, they made like quips and everything. And one thing that was also really cool is that when they was talking to Goldar, before they got into the Zords, they were doing this weird hand motion type stuff as they were talking to him, which was very common back in the old school Power Rangers days. Is that when they would talk, they would do some type of martial arts pose. You don't see that no more. I guess because they thought it was too silly, but I kind of miss that, you know? Because it made it seem different and otherworldly, you know? So anyways, when they call on their power sword, this is something I never understood. They try to grab it with their left hand, which well, it's right to us, but it's their left. And then it's the electrical stuff is too much for them, so they let go, and then they grab it with the other hand. I've never understood why that is. But before we can even see what the power sword can do, Goldar gets scared and he leaves. This angers Rita. So then we get a scene with the Rangers. They're demorphed. They're in the command center. And they're cheering themselves on. And they're talking about, yeah, they want to be Power Rangers. They want to continue doing this. But of course, Kimberly does the whole, I don't know. It makes my hair look ratty in this helmet and stuff. Which causes, like, Alpha to, like, overload. And so then she tells him, just like she's just kidding and everything. And then he's like, oh, humor. I don't really understand that concept and everything. Because, he doesn't really get to hang out with people and stuff. So he's very unaware of that. Now, one thing I just now noticed, I've never noticed before after rewatching this, is that when they're in the command center at the end, their morphers are not painted. They're just silver with the gold coins in the middle. There's no stickers, no painting, no words, no nothing. So that's kind of weird. But this was a cheap show back in the day, so they had to cut a lot of corners. Now, one thing that's interesting is a blink and you'll miss it moment when Rita like fires down at the Rangers before they the putties came and they fought them. It's the original footage from the unaired pilot because Jason is wearing a completely different shirt. He's wearing his white shirt from the unaired pilot, and it's the Hispanic Trini, the original Trini actress. I still think Power Rangers is one of the greatest shows ever. It's fun, it's exciting, it really gets you hyped. You know what I'm saying? Like rewatching this pilot episode, just man made the memories come all back and everything. It's sad that newer Power Ranger shows just can't live up to it, especially in the Nickelodeon era. The Disney era was something unique. It was like a fusion of both Fox Kids and Nickelodeon. And it had a lot of cool explosions and some really good fight scenes. But then they just went to Nickelodeon and everything just went downhill after that. I've never truly been that pumped or excited for a Nickelodeon show. Some of them are alright, but it's just like, I don't know. Like, think about Samurai. How often do you hear people talk about Samurai? How often do you see the stars from Samurai come back for cameos or even do conventions or do anything online? I never see them anywhere. It's almost like Power Rangers Samurai is like non-existent now, has been forgotten, and people are purposely trying to forget it and stuff. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.